Hello, everybody, and welcome to 38 Weeks to Go, your weekly podcast about fantasy football. I am your host, Nash, and let's get into it. The double game week is done. Game week 26 is gone. And how are you feeling about your captain choices? How many of you captained Gabriel? I'm raising my hand. How many of you triple captained Gabriel? For you, I am so sorry. Especially because at one point yesterday, he had 42 points. And then Wolves went and drew 2-2. Arsenal drew 1-1. I don't know if you remember the previous episode, I was saying that these fixtures have goals in them. You know, I hate when I'm right because it worked against me. In fact, it was only because of that I didn't triple captain them. It might have been best to triple captain Rice. So I give decent advice, but I don't take it myself. And for those of you who triple captain Gabriel Jesus, you quieres? I have nothing but just hugs for you. I am just so sorry. Can you believe it would have been better to captain, not even captain, to have a Wolves defender over an Arsenal defender? Isn't that just wild? Because of the clean sheet they kept. Crazy. And the worst part about triple captaining Gyökeres is that it wasn't such a bad idea. Because game week 25, 8 points. Game week 24, 10 points. Game week 23, 5 points. Game week 22, 7 points. Game week 21, 6 points. Game week 29 points. He has been consistently delivering. Except, of course, when you triple captain him. It's kind of like when I bring in Thiago, he does nothing. I'm going to bring in João Pedro. He's going to do nothing. Timing is everything. So, the game week average was 58. What may have not gone as well as we would have liked? Well, it starts like this. Arsenal had 2 games. Arsenal the best defense in the Premier League, and they could not keep a clean sheet in either game. And to be honest, us Gabriel owners are kind of lucky he didn't get sent off, and we're kind of lucky he didn't even score an own goal, you know? And then, for many of us, we missed Chelsea's spell. And Chelsea's spell, we thought that these would be games that would get clean sheets, but no. It was all about João Pedro and Cole Palmer. We missed that train completely. People like me having Sanchez, Chalobah, and Neto. Waste of time and space. If you still have Crystal Palace players, I don't know what to tell you, but they considered 3 goals in 7 minutes against Burnley at home. Clearly they miss Gay more than we thought they would. At this point, it doesn't matter if Glasner is going to leave, he might be fired. For those of us who have Haaland, he was subbed at halftime, and we're just like, no, they look like they were going to demolish them again. And then Semenyo strikes again. If you don't have him now, it's looking like you're shooting yourself in the foot. Ever since Salah came back, Vert's production has diminished. Ekitike is also inconsistent now. And then somehow Liverpool keep a clean sheet? And then that clean sheet, Van Dijk scores? What are we talking about? Mbeumo has an incredible week, so everybody thinks Manchester United for the W. Mbeumo doesn't quite do much, he just has an assist. Man United don't win. And suddenly it's not looking like the great idea that it was. And also, to the guy with the afro, it looks like you have to wait another 5 games. And what does this mean? It also means Bruno Fernandes does nothing after doing well for the last 2-3 weeks. Boy, am I lucky for this double game week, otherwise I would have had him. If you have Everton defenders, then you know how painful it was to see that all of them finished 1 point below defensive contribution points. Painful. 5 of them were under the DEFCON points. Also, if you brought on Calafiori into your team, he scored an own goal, and then he only played for 6 minutes. If you're a Leeds guy, Dominic Calvert-Lewin doesn't play, and we didn't know in advance, or at least well enough in advance. We had been hoping for Chelsea to keep a clean sheet. They don't. Leeds score, but that guy is not there, Mr. Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Everton have forgotten how to keep a clean sheet, and it's also looking like Ryan is Semenyo's replacement. For us who trust Bruno Guimaraes, he was nowhere to be seen on this day. If you're an Aston Villa guy, Rodgers disappeared on us. If you're a Brighton guy, there was nothing for show. If you're a Fulham guy, Anderson has disappeared. He used to be able to get DEFCON and no yellow cards. Now he just gets yellow cards. We've already spoken about Crystal Palace. And then Sunderland falls at home, but then it was Liverpool, so it's fine. Thiago doesn't score. Yep, and that was what went wrong, or what happened. So let's look at the performers of the week. When it comes to goalkeepers, Jose Sa, 13 points. Martinez, 8 points. Alisson Becker, 7 points, along with Donnarumma and Moreno. Virgil van Dijk, 17 points. Oh my goodness, he would have been so worth it. Hincapie, 15 points. O'Reilly, 13 points. Mings, 12 points. Thiaw, 11 points. When it comes to midfielders, Rice and Semenyo were tied with 14 points. Saka, Madueke were tied with 13 points. Palmer, 12 points. Hannibal, Adley, and Gray, 10 points apiece. When it comes to forwards, Strand Larsen had 13 points, Mecha 11, João Pedro 10, Sesko 8, and Bowen 5, along with Haaland, who also had 5. There was no real marquee game this weekend, but the highest scoring game this weekend saw Crystal Palace take on Burnley and lose 3-2. It was a great start. Strand Larsen scored 2 good goals and it looked like everything was fine. Mateta, even though unavailable, it looked like there was a replacement for him. And then suddenly they just crumble. There's just no other way to say it. In the space of 7 minutes, a combination of an own goal from Lerma, a goal from Hannibal, Mejbri, and Anthony. And then it's 3-2. They look absolutely weak at the back. And you can see why the manager threatened to resign at the beginning of the season when he was told that they were going to sell Gabe, because he knew he couldn't afford to replace him. At this point, for me, I'm hoping that they have enough points to not get dragged into the relegation battle. Because as you all know, Thomas Frank, who I've been talking about, was let go along with Sean Dyche. So if you get close enough there, the patience thins quite quickly. Lerma and Wharton had the assists for Crystal Palace. Humphreys, Edwards, and Ugochukwu had the assists for Burnley. The bonus points were spread like this. Strand Larsen had 3, Hannibal had 2, and Anthony had 1. When I look at the most disappointing match, it's really hard to tell whether it's Chelsea versus Leeds 2-2, but actually it's the easiest one. Wolves versus Arsenal 2-2. Why? Arsenal are at the top of the table, Wolves are at the bottom. Anything except a win was a disappointment. And the fact that they conceded 2 goals makes it even that much more disappointing. A 0-0 draw would have been a disappointment, but would have been fine for me and my fantasy purposes. And to be honest, it was looking good. Saka scored, then Hincapie scored, Gabriel had an assist, and Rice had an assist, 2 players in my team. And then Bueno comes out of nowhere with a good goal. And then in the 90-plus minute, Arsenal concede again. Some weird Calafiori deflection to Edozie goal. I have been saying it for some time that Wolves are not the walkover that they used to be. Rob Edwards has them structured in a way that makes them more competitive than they used to be. Having said that, I still thought they would be beaten, but I didn't see them drawing both games. Well done to you. I know they're gone, but they're not going down easy. Now, Saka got the 3 bonus points, Rice got 2, and Hincapie got 1. So this match was a disappointment on many levels. If you're an Arsenal fan, it's disappointing. If you're Gabriel, captainer, disappointing. Triple captainer, even more disappointing. A triple Arsenal defense person, that much more disappointing even. So yeah, that is the most disappointing game of the game week. When it comes to stats, Saka scored last night and that was his first goal in about 10 game weeks. Imagine if you've been holding him for that long. Definitely not worth it. Wolves are the first team in Premier League history to start the day bottom of the table and avoid defeat to the side at the top of the table in spite of trailing by 2 goals. For the 105th consecutive game in all competitions, Chelsea have named a starting with 11 without a single player aged 30 or older. The second longest run, in case you're curious, is Aston Villa, who did it for 47 games between August 97 and May 98. Brentford scored against Arsenal through chaos caused by a throw-in. And Brentford have scored 10 such goals since the start of last season, which is more than double than any other team. As you know, Nottingham Forest fired Sean Dyche, and they are now the second club to see 3 different permanent managers leave during the same Premier League campaign after Watford did it in 2019-2020. Virgil van Dijk scored his 23rd goal in the Premier League for Liverpool, which moves him one clear of Summerville, who they were tied joint top scorer with. Now he is their all-time scoring defender. Nottingham Forest had 35 shots without scoring, and it is the most by a team without finding the net in a Premier League match since 2016, when Manchester United had 38 in their 0-0 draw with Burnley. Nottingham Forest had 62.9% possession, and it is the 10th time in the Premier League that a side managed by Sean Dyche has had at least 60% of the ball and hasn't won any of those games. And he has lost 6 and drawn 4 in similar encounters. Burnley are the first team to go 2-0 down in the first half of a Premier League game but still lead by halftime, since Hull did it against West Ham in 2009. Since the beginning of last season, Semenyo has been directly involved in 7 goals against Fulham, 4 goals and 3 assists. Only one player has more goal involvements against an opponent in this time period, and it is Erling Haaland, who has 8 versus West Ham. James Milner, at 653 appearances, has equaled Gareth Barry for the record of most appearances made in Premier League history. The most Premier League defeats since the start of last season: Wolves 39, Spurs 33, West Ham 31, Fulham 25, Brentford and Forest 24. So I guess you can see why Thomas Frank had to go. Only Stuttgart and Chelsea in the top 5 leagues are the only teams not to field a player over 30. Thomas Frank averaged 1.12 points per game as Tottenham manager, 29 points in 26 games. It's the lowest rate of any Spurs manager with 5 or more games in the competition. Oh my goodness, at this point he would have finished with 39 points. Tottenham at this point have more chance of being relegated than they do of finishing within the top 9. It's a 3.95% chance of being relegated and a 3% chance of being in the top 9. And before he was fired, they had gone 4 games losing, 4 games lost, 8 games in total. And this was the longest unwinning streak since Juan de Ramos. Can you believe that? Blast from the past in 2008. Ryan is just the 3rd teenager to register a goal or assist in each of his first 3 Premier League appearances, after Robbie Keane and Anthony Martial. Wow, when was the last time you thought about Martial? Anyway, if you're looking for differential, Ryan is a guy. João Pedro is the 4th Brazilian to score 10 plus goals in back-to-back Premier League seasons, after Firmino, Richarlison, and Cunha. 622,000 managers triple captained Gabriel, making him the 3rd most triple captained player in FPL history. First is Erling Haaland, of course. Second is Mohamed Salah. And 3rd is Gabriel. So of course that also means he's the most triple captain defender of all time. When it comes to DEFCON points, the top 5 are as follows: Hill 20, João Gomes 20, Sarr 19, Gabriel Saka 18. Most selected player this game week was Haaland. He was the most captained and the most vice-captained. When it comes to players brought in, João Pedro is the top transfer in this game week, with 229,000 bringing him in. In second place, it is Palmer with 212,000 bringing him in. Semenyo is in 3rd with 207,000 bringing him in. Hill from Bournemouth is 4th with 143,000 bringing him in. And he's 4.0? Okay, I think I might have a new defender as well. And Virgil van Dijk is 5th with 129,000 people bringing him in. Top players out. Bruno Guimaraes, 290,000 removing him. Rice, 129,000 removing him. I don't know why. Haaland, 114,000. I guess people are unsure about his injury. Enzo, 113,000. Kukureya, 108,000. The top player this game week was Virgil van Dijk, 17 points. Now, like I said a little earlier, the average points for the week were 58. So if you got 58 and above, well done. If you did not, thankfully, there's still a couple of weeks left to go. Now, the top manager this week got 138 points with the team name You've Gotta Be Joking. It's a good one. Or You've Gotta Be Joking. This team is so good. Okay. Donnarumma, 7 points. Virgil van Dijk, 17 points. Gabriel, 7 points. Gay, 7 points. Palmer, 12 points. Rice, 14 points. Madueke triple captain, 39 points. Semenyo, 14 points. Mbomo, 6 points. Luca, 2 points. Strand Larsen, 13 points. And on his bench, he had João Pedro, who had 10 points. That's just incredible. In our group, Proper Chels, managed by Washira Gitahi, and Let's Go by Bruce Lee Abungana, both got 92 points. It's been a while since we've had a tied number one, and 92 is a great result. Washira Gitahi used his bench boost. So, he got 2 points from Pope, 3 from Van de Ven, 7 from Gabriel, 3 from Timber, 6 from Bumo, 14 from Semenyo, Captain Rice 28, Rogers 2, Bruno Fernandes 2, João Pedro 10, Mane 4. On his bench, he had Kelleher who had 2, Voltemada who had 1, Rhys James who got 0, and Matson who got 8. So not really a great bench performance, but it all counts and he ended up with 92. When it comes to Bruce Lee's Abugana's Let's Go, he had Roofs, 2 points. Virgil van Dijk, 17 points. And Virgil van Dijk came off the bench. Lucky boy. Chaloba, 3. Tiao, 11. Verts, who came off the bench, 3. Captain Semenyo, 28. Wilson, 2. Rogers, 2. Palmer, 12. João Pedro, 10. Ekitike, 2. So the great thing about these two teams is that they're so different, and they both got 92 points. There's so many ways to skin a cat. Alan Mushangi got 86, and number 4 and number 5 was a tie between Ronchi Saka and El Flick, who both got 85 points. When it comes to the other end of the table, Dennis Mutua is holding it down with 23 points. In goal, he had Pickford, 1 point. Tarkowski, 1 point. Gusto, 0 points. Spence, 0. Timber, 3. Salah, 6. Bruno, 2. Tonali, 1. Eze, 2. Captain Hudson-Odoi, 6. Muniz, 1. And that's how he got 23 points. Chris Masika had 26. Sam Loud had 32. G-Star Glitz had 33. And rounding up the bottom 5 is Brian Ibrahim, who had 34. When it comes to the most points on the bench, Lawrence Agyapong, manager of Uplow Babies, has 65 points. But on the bench, they had 27 points. Do you know who's on the bench? Saka, who played twice, 13. Gay, 7 points. Donnarumma, 7 points. So this is a kind of team which makes you feel like he didn't quite remember to put on the right players in his team. Interesting. Because as I look at this team, he almost had 40 points on the bench. It's just that Strike from Leeds did not play, so O'Reilly came on with 13 points. Can you believe that? 40 points on the bench. While some people have 23 with their captain playing. Aflagani was second with 22. Teddy Mwalo had 18. And in number 4 and 5, we have Mark Moura and Telvin Mudoga, who had 17 points on the bench each. So when it comes to the team with the most goals scored, Joel Ndebe, Panyako Nyerere, and Bruce Lee Abungana had 5 goal scorers, or rather 5 goals scored by his team. or their team. The team with the best midfield belongs to Alan Muchangi, whose midfield delivered 62 points. Goodness, I need to look at this team. Okay, so now that I've looked at the team, it makes sense. First of all, you need to know he got 86 points. Rice had 42 points, triple captain. Then he had Semenya, who had 14. So you can see that's already 56. And then he had Sar, who had 2, Bernard, who had 2, and Rogers, who had 2. Oti Omondi's Longilo had 51 points in defense. Those are really high. So, of course, you can imagine he had Virgil van Dijk, who had 17 points. Then his triple captain was Gabriel, who had 21 points. Then he had Mosquera, who had 9 points. And then Muno had 1, and Raya had 3. So if Arsenal had kept a clean sheet, this would have been absolutely ridiculous. So moving on to the most transfers made by somebody in our group this week. Kwan Kimko made 9 transfers this week, followed by Jeffrey Jeremy, who made 5, along with Abel Kibunja, Mark Lukwago, Theo Mikesi, and Charles Osano and Mark Giosh. Wow, many transfers this week. The best transfer outcome belongs to Theo Mikesi, who got 22 points. And I think this is the first time I'm mentioning Theo Mikesi. Theo Mikesi had 22 points from the transfers made. Well done. Number 2 was Jeffrey Jeremy, who had 18 points. Michael Miner, 16. Sky Screeper, 16. And in 5th place, we have 2. Stevie G and yours truly, who got 13 points from the transfers made. So I didn't do badly. When it comes to the opposite end, now, disappointing transfer outcomes. Now, their transfers resulted in a loss of points. If they had done nothing, they would have lost nothing. So, for example, Jeremy Yego is 21 points worse off for making transfers. Abel Kibunja, 19 points worse off. John Mongemi, 18 points worse off. Walal Somali, 16 points worse off. And then Felix Okaka, 15 points worse off for making transfers this season. This game week. When it comes to the team with the highest team value, Collins Kogi, manager of Team B+, 106.2. When it comes to the team with the lowest team value, Angola Nayo Kijana Imama, 96.8. When it comes to the highest change in team value, Texas Tens, manager of Tana FC, has added 0.7 to the bank. Well done, sir. When it comes to the worst change in team value, Juan Kimco has lost 0.9 in team value. Every time I see something that drastic, I always think somebody's used the wildcard. Let me confirm, no wildcard, but they did make 9 transfers, and that can definitely hurt team value. This week's best differential pick was obviously Virgil van Dijk, who was chosen by a meager 12% of us and got a return of 17 points. Jose Sa was second, and his was even greater because it's 1% of us, and he got 13 points. Now, Hinkapie, also chosen by 1% of us, returned 15 points. Saka, chosen by 8% of us, got 13 points. And O'Reilly, chosen by 9% of us, also got 13 points. And those were the top 5 differentials in our group this week. Now, Washira Gitahi, who got 92 points, is our overall rank riser this week, jumping 1 million positions globally. When it comes to the biggest drop, Chris Masika has dropped 1 million positions, not even 1 million, 1.1 million positions globally. Long Lilo has been having a great 8 weeks, and this is his 8th week in a row to get green arrows. Walal Somali and Mohammed Shine, this is their 9th week in a row to get red arrows. I've been there. Just you'll figure something out. When it comes to our league table, El Fleek and Michael Miner have jumped 22 positions each. I like how this week there are a lot of people tied for things. Now, Chris Masika is on the opposite end, and he has dropped 28 positions in our league table. When it comes to captain choices, the most popular captain choice this week was Haaland, with 63 of us choosing him to be captain. In second place was Gabriel, who was chosen by 41, managers. 19 of us captained Rice. 12 of us captained Gyökeres. 10 of us captained Bruno. 6 of us captained João Pedro. 5 of us captained Palmer. 4 of us captained Ekitike. Another 4 captained Saka. Another 3 captained Salah. Thiago, Bumo, Semenyo were captained by 3. Wood, Madueke, Saliba were captained by 2. Voltemada, Bowen, Hudson-Odoi, Pope, Grealish, Foden, Gakpo, Raul Jimenez, Evanilson, Watkins, Havertz, Zubimendi, Martinelli, and Timber were each captained by 1 manager. When it comes to our table, from last week, number 1 to 7 are frozen in place. There's been no change in number 1 to number 7. Number 1 is Arnold Midunga, who has 1608 points. Number 2 is Alan Muchangi, who has 1592 points. Number 3 is Leon Motia, who has 1565 points. Papichulo has 1552 points in number 4. Charles Kaduvilis, 1541 points. Madhagani Kihoro, 1537 points. Amos Langat, 1533. And at number 8 is where the changes start, and we have Franklin Nasiema rising up to 1529. Jeffrey Jeremy has fallen to 1524 at number 9, and Ron Chisaka has jumped into the top 10 with 1509. Can you believe 100 points from number 1 is number 11? So between number 1, who has 1608, number 11 has 1508. I want you to let that sink in. The winner of our league is coming from those 11 people. Well, most likely. It's not written in anything. But should they remain consistent and should they continue? And I'm assuming none of them stops playing. But if ceteris paribus, if all things are held constant, these top 10 people one of them is the winner. So if you're in the top 10, keep going. And for the rest of us, let's do the most to see us try to compete. Bottom of the table is Bruce Lee Abungana, who was number 1 this week with 92 points. He has 157. And this confuses me because I closed off the league to new applicants, so I don't know. Maybe I did it after him. I don't know. Anyway, he is last with 157. Second last is Marcos Peters with 250. Mark Maura has 721. Mike Mbugwa has 915. And Murunga Manyara, 5th from bottom, has 923. So, it's cooked for those guys. Those guys, now that one is just who is the best last placed kind of player. They're relegated. It's done. Looking at number 1, we have a new number 1 in the world. And number 1 in the world has 1729 points. And the name of the team is the Honest Trundlers, and the manager's name is Ian Foster. This week, Ian Foster used his captain on Gabriel, and he got 14 points. In goal, he had Raya, who had 3. Virgil van Dijk gave him 17 points. Diego Dalot gave him 1. Gay gave him 7. Rogers gave him 2. Rice gave him 14. Bruno Fernandes gave him 2. Wirtz gave him 3. João Pedro gave him 10. Haaland gave him 5. And that's how he got 78 points. It's actually quite a balanced team. Looking at the fixtures coming this week, the game week starts off on Saturday. And it starts off with Aston Villa taking on Leeds. As Leeds are a promoted side, head-to-head isn't quite relevant, but it must be said that in their most recent encounter, Aston Villa beat them 2-1, with Rogers scoring 2 goals and Mecha scoring the goal for Leeds. Leeds got a credible draw last time out, and Villa beat Brighton with a Hinchelwood own goal. Aston Villa have been sneaky difficult to beat, and they've been getting clean sheets, so if you can time it right, there might be something in there for you. As the last encounter was a 2-1, I wouldn't recommend you entering this team for defense unless you think that defender will get either defensive contribution points, or will score, or will have an assist. kind of like how Mings got in the last game for Villa. If you believe in the defense, I would say you get Maatsen or Mings, because if you remember me talking about the points, they had high points, or you get a goalkeeper in Martinez. And then forward, you have Rodgers or Watkins. If you're getting a Leeds player, I would say Mecha, Okafor, and maybe Grove. Leeds have been a difficult team to predict because they keep having random goal scorers. It could be Groove or Grove, I don't know how you say it. It could be Bogle. And it's kind of like a Bournemouth, how just somebody else will score. So it's quite, I would say, don't get into Leeds unless you're really feeling somebody for a particular reason, because I have no feel on them currently. Brentford versus Brighton. Brentford were impressive last time out and they deserve to beat Arsenal. Arsenal were very lucky. Now, Brighton versus Brentford has 2 draws, 2 Brighton wins, and 1 Brentford win. Now, when they draw, it's 0-0. When the most popular scoreline in the last 5 games has been 0-0 and 2-1. So it's either going to be a draw or 2-1, is what I would say. Now, the last time out, Thiago scored, Welbeck scored, Hinchelwood scored. So let's start by looking at the players. If you're taking a Brentford player, if you believe in the defense, Kelleher, Vandenberg. If you believe in them going forward, Ouattara, Thiago. On the other end, if you believe in Brighton, Welbeck, Mitoma, and Cross. Chelsea take on Burnley, and Chelsea have been so disappointing of late. It's really hard to know what you're going to get from them. Chelsea have a favorable record, as you can imagine, against Burnley. Last time out, they won 2-0 with Neto and Fernandes scoring. They drew last time with Leeds. I don't see Burnley beating them, but Burnley just pulled off a very miraculous victory over Crystal Palace. And so with Burnley, anything can happen. And Marcus Edwards tends to be involved when anything good happens for Burnley. So I would look at him. I would say Marcus Edwards, Fleming, and Anthony. And if you want another goal scorer, you could take Mejbri. For Chelsea, if the last 2 games are anything to go by, it is Palmer and João Pedro. Nothing else. Don't even get a third player from Chelsea. Just get those 2 and live with it. I have Chalobah and Sanchez, so I am hoping for another 2-0 and hoping that my defense will carry me this week. West Ham take on Bournemouth. Now, West Ham were impressive in that they did not get beaten by Manchester United, and Bournemouth were really good in that they won 2-1, and leading the way was Ryan. Now, when I look at their last 5 encounters, there are 3 draws and then 2 wins for West Ham. So West Ham have the upper edge historically against this team. And so if you believe that, you would most likely believe that Bowen, Souček, and Summerville are your best bets in this game. And if you're looking at Bournemouth, I would say Ryan, Adley, and maybe Hill are your best bets from Bournemouth. Manchester City versus Newcastle. Manchester City have won 1, 2, 3 out of the last 5 games and have drawn 1 and lost 1. I would give recent form to Newcastle to lose. But Manchester City, Mamouche tends to do the business against Newcastle. So I wonder if he will play. I wonder what Pep is thinking, but that's who. If Haaland is still unfit, he took a knock and was substituted at halftime. If he's still unavailable, even after a week plus, Mamouche will be leading the way. I know also Semenyo is going to be involved in this. So now let me read you the scorers for the last game. Mamouche 2 goals, Reinders 1, and Elanga. And that was in the cup game. And if you remember that cup game, Manchester City were lucky not to have been scored at least 2 more goals. In the game before that, Semenyo and Cherki scored. In the game before that, Javi Barnes scored 2 and Diaz scored 1. In the game before that, Mamouche had a hat-trick and Makati had 1. So Mamouche is a top scorer in this fixture. So I just have to say Mamouche, Semenyo, and Haaland. I'm sure Mamouche will play. Now, I'm willing him to play. On the other end, should you believe in Newcastle, Gordon just scored 4 goals last night. Harvey Barnes is another one. And then you have Elanga. Those 3 are the ones I would recommend. Crystal Palace versus Wolves. I am so tempted to enter this game because I'm not sure whether Dominic Calvert-Lewin will play. And I just want to replace him with Strand Larsen because I believe Strand Larsen will score in this game. Now, Wolves have had an impressive last 2 encounters in that they were not beaten. Crystal Palace lost from the jaws of victory. I don't know what they were doing. Now, should you believe in these teams? Now, looking at their recent head-to-head, Crystal Palace have won 4 of the 5 encounters. And it seems like both teams have scored in all encounters except one. Now, Munoz and Pino scored in the most recent encounter when Crystal Palace won 2-0, and that is the only time Wolves were held goalless. Now, if you believe this will continue, I wouldn't blame you, but I would ask you to exercise caution because, as you saw, Wolves scored 2 against Arsenal, who are Crystal Palace, and they can't even defend well nowadays. However, if you have Crystal Palace players, I would recommend Strand Larsen, Sarr, and Munoz. If you want Wolves players, I would encourage you to look at Bueno, Gomez, and Mane. Nottingham Forest take on Liverpool. And this is going to be a game in which Liverpool should win. Nottingham Forest sacked their manager, and now they'll be hoping for a new manager bounce. I know if it was up to them, they would hire 38 managers and sack them week by week to get all the points. But that's not how football works. Now, head-to-head doesn't really matter because these teams are really different. If you're going to choose Nottingham Forest players, I would just say Gibbs White, Hudson-Odoi, and Hutchinson. If you're going to choose Liverpool players, I would say stick with Van Dijk, have Szoboszlai, and then have Salah or Gakpo, whichever one makes more sense for you. Sunderland take on Fulham, and Sunderland are at home. They lost for the first time at home this season when they were beaten by Liverpool 1-0, thanks to a Van Dijk header. Now, having said that, I still believe they'll be favoured because they're at home. So I am bringing Mukiele back into my lineup. When these 2 teams met last time, Fulham beat them 1-0 at Craven Cottage. But that was away, and Sunderland lose away, but they're better at home. Now, I've already told you I'm putting on Mukiele. It was just on my bench. Outside that, this Diarra guy has been sneaky good. And then, if Brobby is available, give him a run. Now, on the other end, what do I say? Kevin, I love Kevin. And then Raul Jimenez. And let's see, who would another player be? Let's go with Anderson. He tends to be a DEFCON magnet, even if he hasn't been for the last couple of games. Yeah, those are the 3 I'd look at. And then we have the marquee game of the weekend, the North London Derby. Thomas Frank is gone, and in his place they have Igor Tudor, former Juventus defender, and he's a very defensive coach. Will he finally solve Tottenham's problems? I would have preferred him at Forest. I think he would have done a better job there than he'll do at Spurs because they already have the defensive identity in terms of the players who are there. But anyway, if wishes were horses, beggars would ride, that's what they say. Arsenal have been disappointing over the last 2 encounters, and should they slip up in this one, they will give Manchester City a path to overtaking them. Now, I don't know whether to believe in Arsenal defense anymore. So I would just say, if you have 3 defenders, get rid of 2 of them, move to 1, preferably Gabriel, and then have Rice, and then choose Madueke or Trossard. Don't fall into the trap of Saka. If you're choosing Spurs players, just go with Van de Ven because you know he's the top scorer now that Romero is off the pitch. And then after that, who would I choose after that? Let's go for Solanke since he's been scoring. But honestly, I wouldn't enter into Spurs for this game. But with a new manager, I would say watch this game. And then if you see something that you like, put it on. Because you never know who will play. You just never know. And then Monday, we'll see Everton take on Manchester United. Everton were beaten last time out. Manchester United escaped with a draw in the 90th plus minute. And so both teams have room for improvement. Now, when you look at their recent encounters, Manchester United have won 2, and whenever they win, it's scoreless. When they've drawn, it's been 2-2, and when Everton win, it is goalless as well. I mean, they win 1-0. So what does that mean? Whoever wins will win, and the other team will not score. In recent form, I think Manchester United have what it takes to beat Everton, but you just never know with Everton. Although we do know that they haven't kept a clean sheet in a while, because I've got their defenders. As always, if you're going to have an Everton player, I would suggest you start with Dijk, and then your choice of defenders be Tarkowski or Pickford. And then for Manchester United, you know what the deal is. You have Bruno, Mbumo, Konya, or Ahmad. Figure out the one that you love over there and cut out one. And I would say if you're choosing, I think you start with Bruno, then you go Mbumo, and then you go Konya, and then you go Ahmad. But Ahmad tends to show up when it counts. But then this is not that kind of game. If it was Arsenal, I would start with Ahmad. When it comes to choosing a captain, Aston Villa taking on Leeds, Morgan Rogers is a great candidate here. Mecha is also a good one. For Brentford versus Brighton, I would say Igor Thiago or Ouattara are good ones. I would say Welbeck or Mitoma. For Chelsea, I would say João Pedro or Palmer. For Burnley, I would say Marcus Edwards. For West Ham, I would say Bowen or Summerville. For Bournemouth, I would say Ryan. Yeah, Ryan. Manchester City, I would say Mamouche or Semenyo. For Newcastle, I would say Gordon, Harvey Barnes. For Crystal Palace versus Wolves, for Palace, I would say Ron Larson. For Wolves, I would say Bueno. Forest versus Liverpool. That is going to be an interesting game. I would say bank on defense. I think there's going to be a clean sheet in this game. If you have to captain somebody from Liverpool, I would say Szoboszlai. If you have to captain somebody from Forest, I would say Gibbs White. Fulham versus Sunderland, I would say for Sunderland, Brobby. For Fulham, I would say Raul Jimenez. But I also wouldn't choose my captain this week from this game. Spurs versus Arsenal, if you have Saka, why not? If you have Rice, why not? If you have Gabriel, why not? For Spurs, I wouldn't captain anybody. For Everton, it has to be Dijk. For Man United, it's your choice. Is it Bruno? Is it Cunha? Is it Mbumo? Just one of them three. When it comes to the FPL FDR, Arsenal have Tottenham, Chelsea, Brighton, Everton, and then a blank week in Gameweek 31. These games are not easy, and so I would say do not lean on their defense. I would say start moving up the pitch. Start taking chances on a guy like Madueke. I don't know if you noticed, but in yesterday's game, Madueke has been playing so well until Saka was pushed to the center, and that might be something that continues. Aston Villa take on Leeds, Wolves, Chelsea, Man United, and West Ham. The next two games are not bad. They have potential to gain a lot of points up until they meet Chelsea and Man U, and I believe they can beat one of them. I would say look at Villa players. If you can figure out who you want there, there's opportunity for return. Bournemouth have West Ham, Sunderland, Brentford, Burnley, and Manchester United. If you want, I would suggest you take Ryan, Hill, and Adley. Those are reasonable fixtures, and they can gain something from these games. Brentford have Brighton, Burnley, Bournemouth, Wolves, Leeds. Wow. That's Igor Thiago all the way, Ouattara all the way, and maybe a defender even. These are not generous fixtures, but all winnable fixtures for Brentford. Brighton have Brentford, Forest, Arsenal, Sunderland, and Liverpool. Not easy fixtures, but they will be competitive. I wouldn't look at these fixtures and say I need Brighton players, so I won't recommend that you go into them. Burnley have Chelsea, Brentford, Everton, Bournemouth, and Fulham. Honestly, at this point, only Marcus Edwards is worth having in your team irrespective of fixture. Chelsea have Burnley, Aston Villa, Arsenal, Newcastle, Everton. So after Burnley, this is their last hurrah. So I'm moving all my players after the Burnley game. So get off Chelsea. There was a period they were hot, and if you took advantage of that, congratulations to you. If you did not, Burnley fixture is the end of that easy train in theory. Crystal Palace have Wolves, Man United, Tottenham, Leeds. In theory, they could beat Wolves and Leeds, but they're in such scary form, I wouldn't recommend you to look into them right now outside this Wolves fixture that's coming up. They too have a blank game week on game week 31. Everton have Manchester United, Newcastle, Burnley, Arsenal and Chelsea. This might also be time to start getting out of your Everton players. Goodness, so I need to get out of my Arsenal players, of my Everton players, of my Chelsea players, and move them maybe to Aston Villa and Bournemouth. Okay. Fulham have Sunderland, Tottenham, West Ham, Forest and Burnley. These are competitive fixtures and they will be competitive. It's just a matter of figuring out who it is. Might it be Harry Wilson, Emil Smith-Rowe, or just somebody else? When you figure that person out, just lock in and stay with them over this next 5 games. Leeds have Villa, then Manchester City, then Sunderland, then Crystal Palace and Brentford. It might be time to get out of them. Liverpool have Forest, West Ham, Wolves, Tottenham and Brighton. Honestly, it might be time to get into Liverpool players. Man City have Newcastle, Leeds, Forest, West Ham, blank. Honestly, these fixtures look good. Manchester United have Everton, Crystal Palace, Newcastle, Aston Villa and Bournemouth. Man United are still in good form, and if you have the right players, you should be fine. I think Sesko is becoming a bit of a differential, so watch that space. Newcastle have Manchester City, then they have Everton, Man United, Chelsea and Sunderland. You know, every time I want to bring Malik Thiaw into my team, I look at the fixtures and they never look good, and then he still scores. So I don't know what to do with that information, but I've told you how it happens. Nottingham Forest have Liverpool, Brighton, Man City, Fulham, Tottenham. We just wait and see what their new manager brings. I would even encourage you to get out of their players, even though, yeah, just get out. Spurs have Arsenal, Fulham, Crystal Palace, Liverpool, and Forest. This all depends on what the manager shows over the next 3 games. Them and Forest, the next 3 games will determine who they are and what can happen. Sunderland have Fulham, Bournemouth, Leeds, Brighton, and Newcastle. So every time I look at Sunderland fixtures, I'm like, how many fixtures do they have at home out of the next 5? They only have 2. So I think I will be moving off Enzo Lefebvre after this Fulham game at home. West Ham have Bournemouth, Liverpool, Fulham, Man City, and Aston Villa. Difficult fixtures, but they have been better of late, and I think they can be competitive just as they were against Man U. So I wouldn't encourage you to get into them for the next 5 fixtures, but if you have somebody like Summerville who can just randomly score, it might be worth having or keeping. Wolves have Crystal Palace, Aston Villa, Liverpool, Brentford, and then a blank. Now, for this team, I would just bet against them. I mean, I wouldn't go into them. I also wouldn't, like you see what happened against Arsenal. They're going to be competitive. So don't write them off. They're not whipping boys anymore, but they're not going to win also. So maybe high-scoring draws or tight losses. And with that, we have come to the end of the podcast. I hope your week is going well. We will see you on the pitch. Have a great remainder of your week. Bye-bye.